This is Daniela Camboni for Kitco News at the IPMI in Las Vegas. Joining me now is Philip-Newman of Thompson Reuters-GFMS. Philip was a speaker on today's panel on silver. Philip, thank you so much for being with me once again.
Pleasure to be here.
So Philip, in your presentation you spoke a lot about the supply of silver, and you said how this year we really saw a record surplus of silver. How is that impacting the metal?
Well, I think the interesting thing is you mentioned that we've seen the surplus growing in recent years, with a record last year and a further record established this year. And that's happened against the backdrop of rising prices. And that's tell us that that surplus has really, very much that surplus has been absorbed by investors coming into the market. And they've been increasingly important in terms of driving prices higher.
Philip, in the presentation, someone brought up that the majority of silver being mined is being mined as a byproduct. Does that have any impact?
Well, I think what he mentioned was that in terms of global mine production, about 80% is produced as a byproduct. Only about sort of 17, 19, 20% is actually from primary silver mines. So when you're thinking of the impact of silver prices, that only affects a small portion of global mine production. So you have to look at what gold prices are doing and base metal prices as well, in terms of the history and how that's driving exploration and therefore the growth in global mine production.
Philip, also in your presentation, you spoke about bargain hunters and how we might really see them emerge again, especially in 2013. What role might they play?
Well, I think, yes, we're going to see bargain hunters, we think, sort of the back end of next year and carrying on to 2014. And I think one of the factors that we will see is that as prices, we think, start to weaken towards the end of next year, there'll be investors out there that think this offers sort of a decent buying opportunity, who perhaps may not think that the bull run has come to an end, and that will help to offset some of the liquidations that we'll see. And we think probably some of those bargain hunting will come from sort of price-sensitive markets, China and India being sort of case in point.
So let's talk prices now, Philip. What prices are you looking at for silver for 2012?
Well, I think what we're looking at really is we've had an uncertain start to the year. Prices have ramped up at the beginning of the year. Liquidations in March and April, prices relatively soft. We think that prices may remain soft for the next couple of months, perhaps finding a floor in the high 20s. But we think that then prices will ramp up as investment demand picks up as well. And we could see silver perhaps touch or maybe even exceed $40 before the end of this year.
Philip, during your presentation, you mentioned that precious metals should still be bullish due to the rise in government bond yields, low interest rates, and the fact that you believe monetary easing will continue. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, exactly. I think that what we're seeing now is that there is some investment demand out there, but it has been a very uncertain time over the first 5 or 6 months of this year. A lot of investors waiting on the sidelines, almost unconvinced if they should come back into precious metals, more perhaps happier to invest in treasuries, even if those treasuries aren't offering any yield, just to guarantee that there's not going to be a haircut in terms of their investments and they get their money back. But we think that, in spite of comments by the Fed last week, that there will be very strong conditions for monetary easing, not only in the US, but China, India, Europe and Japan, some very key principal economies. And that will all in turn inform an inflationary expectations, and that'll be a key driver in terms of bringing investors back into the market.
Okay, so before silver hits that $40 mark, Philip, how do you play this game? Because we're seeing so much volatility right now in the silver market.
I mean, I think that's a key. I think, silver by its very nature is going to be volatile, and added volatility comes from the fact that it's investors that are driving the market. So I think there is going to be that uncertainty in the market, but even allowing for that backdrop, we still think that gradually prices will be on an upward trend. But as you rightly said, it'll be an upward trend, but it'll be a volatile trend as well.
Philip, thank you so much for your thoughts today.
Pleasure to be here with you.
And thank you for watching our coverage from the IPMI. We'll have more interviews for you coming up. In the meantime, you can email me at newsfeedback@kitco.com.